You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, General Hospital fans. It is Belinda from Soap Dirt, and I've got a comings and goings update. Lois Cerullo is back, and this makes me wonder if Eddie Maine is going to spark with his ex-wife and baby mama. This is an amazing piece of GH casting news. Rena Sofer is back to the soap as her character Lois Cerullo. She's not been seen in the role since October of 1997. There was a brief recast in like the mid-aughts that I was, okay. So not because the actress wasn't good, just because it wasn't Rena in the role. And for me, Rena is Lois. So this October 2023, Rena Sofer is back to GH at last, and the timing is absolutely incredible. I made a speculative video back in June, so 3 months ago. If you don't want to scroll back through that many months of videos, if you go to our search bar and just type in Lois, it'll turn up for you real quickly. But I mentioned at the time back in June that I would love it if Lois came to town to help Eddie Maine get his memories back. And now I manifested it. I must have manifested it. You guys are welcome because it's happening. We've got the details for you and a few things to discuss about Rena Sofer's upcoming return. But first, if you haven't already, please reach down, click subscribe so you don't miss any of our General Hospital updates. So, after leaving General Hospital back in 1997, Rena Sofer stayed very busy on TV. The year after she left, she landed on Melrose Place for a while, and she has worked nearly constantly since then. Two of my favorite series, in addition to Melrose, that I liked to watch her on back in the mid-aughts was 24 and Heroes, huge hit TV shows that she had significant roles on. And then in July of 2013, she landed a juicy role on Bold and the Beautiful, playing scheming, manipulative, and utterly delicious Quinn Fuller. Quinn was so much fun. She actually won several international soap awards because B&B is huge in international circles, and she won as Best Villain. And boy, was she so villainous and just beautiful and perfect. She stayed at B&B for almost a decade, but decided to leave almost a year ago exactly. Her last episode of Bold was October 2022. If you don't watch Bold as well as GH, here's something of interest to note. It was Rena Sofer's decision to leave the CBS soap. But to be fair, they were not doing justice to her talent or the character that they had written for her. She had been sidelined in what was her front burner storyline when they gave her husband's character erectile dysfunction. Nothing says sexy soap plot more than ED, right? And then her husband started banging his ex while saying he was off playing pickleball because he found out his weenie worked with her. Just that was what her character's life had come down to. It was just awful. So Rena Sofer notified the powers that be over at Bold that she was going to leave. They asked her to stay. She said no, thank you. And then the way they exited her was so very frustrating for fans because they didn't give her a proper exit. Far from it. Her character had lunch with somebody one day and then was just never seen again. And that was it. And her exit was mentioned off screen as, oh, yeah, Quinn decided to leave town. That was it. 10 years, like 9.5 years, almost 10 years, a decade on that soap. And that was how they exited her. Petty. Allegedly. I think it was petty. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it felt petty to me as a fan. So it is ironic to me, as someone who loved her as both Lois Cerullo on GH and Quinn Fuller on B&B, that she is going to debut on General Hospital again, almost a year from the day that she left B&B in her last appearance there. So good for her, but especially good for GH fans, but maybe not so good for Olivia Falconeri, considering that Lois and Eddie were electric back in the day. So here's what we know about Rena Sofer's return to the ABC soap opera and what we hope to see happen with Lois and with Eddie. If you don't remember, she won an Emmy playing Lois way back in the day, and I'd be thrilled if they wrote her an Emmy-worthy storyline in her return to GH. What's really weird about this to me is this script is in the hands of the replacement writers that we do not know who they are. I had done a video the other day about an retired GH writer who said she was worried that the replacement writers were going to mess things up and mess up the ratings, and then the show was going to get canceled. And it's like, for me, and I did another video on this about the replacement writers, I think they're doing a pretty good job. And this retired writer speculated that she actually thinks it is people from like the producer and director level that are writing these scripts. All I know is that things, for the most part, are moving faster. They are tying up loose ends. They are closing down storylines. They have brought us a couple of crossovers that were fun but didn't last very long, which was okay too. And now they're bringing us back Rena Sofer. So whoever these replacement writers are, thank you. I just want to say thank you. So ABC Daytime announced that Rena Sofer is back as Lois Cerullo in October. She already started filming this week, so it should be about 4 weeks from now when we see her on the air, because they typically do a 4-week tape to air delay. We will definitely update you once we have her first air date. So if you were not watching back in the late 90s and early 2000s when she left, or if your memory's foggy and you'd like a reminder, I'm just going to give you a 20-cent recap of her character. Lois Cerullo was from Brook Lynn, New York, specifically Bensonhurst. So she and Olivia do have some of that, New York borough thing in common. She had the thick accent and everything. She was a black-haired, blue-eyed dynamo, and she fell hard for Eddie Maine. Eddie Maine, not Ned Quartermaine. She fell hard for Eddie Maine. When they met, she did not know that he was Ned Ashton, as he was called back then. She only knew him as sexy rocker Eddie. She managed his singing career at first, and then she ended up falling really hard for him. They got married, but unfortunately, he then married another woman who was blackmailing his family under threat of blackmail. She confronted him on the subterfuge and the bigamy and walked out on him, but he really loved her and eventually got her to remarry him. And in the end, what broke Lois and Ned up was that he was Ned Ashton Quartermaine and not Eddie Maine. She wanted Eddie. She wanted the guy she fell for, and she didn't want Ned, who back in the day was neck deep in corporate intrigue and put the Quartermaines before everything else. So poor Lois left town pregnant, sad, and she gave birth to Brook Lynn on her own in New York, where she raised her as a single mom. Now their daughter is grown, and Mama Lois is coming back in just a few weeks. But what's going to happen? For me, there's no doubt that the fact that Ned is now Eddie Maine, which, side note, is a whole just conceived persona, which is a bizarre premise because it was only ever his stage name. Eddie wasn't a person. It just, whatever. All right. So looking back, that just bizarre, terrible plot thing, which was created by the writers that are on strike right now. Right now, he is on the outs with his wife, Olivia Falconeri, but Olivia is starting to develop a little crush on Nettie after their outing to the recording studio. She is now referring to him as Eddie and not as Ned. So it's all getting really weird. I have no doubt that Lois Cerullo heard from her daughter, Brook Lynn, that her ex-husband has lost his mind and thinks he's the rock star she met in the late 90s. No doubt Lois needs to come to Port Charles to see this for herself. But what I wonder is if the chemistry we saw way back in the 90s between her and Eddie is immediately back. Is it immediately noticeable? Are they vibing right from the get-go? I do love Ned with Olivia. I do. And I'm pretty thrilled, though, to think about the possibility of Eddie and Lois getting back together. So it's a problem. I like Olivia with Ned, but I like Eddie with Lois. And, I don't think either of them is going to agree to be sister wives. So something's got to give. Maybe Lois just comes to town to see if she can help him recover his memories, and then she's going to leave again. I don't know. That'd be a great thing to do. But I really would love to see them sizzle again. And And, if Robert and Diane Miller don't work out, remember Olivia and Robert kind of had a vibe. They had a vibe. It could happen. So what do you think? I have a couple of questions for you to consider as you drop your comments below. And be sure to click like if you enjoyed this, and definitely subscribe if you haven't already. So here's my questions for you guys. I want to read your comments. I read every single one of them every day. And thank you so much for interacting with us and commenting and watching the videos. Here's my questions. Are you excited to see Rena Sofer back as Lois Cerullo? Were you watching back then? Do you remember her? Are you hoping to see Lois get a new shot at romance with Eddie Maine? And what would you like to see with this Rena Sofer return? So there's no word yet whether this is just one of those short-term things with just a few episodes like they did with the crossovers with Jackson Montgomery and Blair Kramer. Jackson's had like maybe 3 episodes total, and I think Blair is going to wind up with 2, at least right now. We don't know if it's that kind of deal or if she's back and is on contract. I don't know. The network was tight-lipped other than just to say that Rena is back, which is a really exciting thing for me. So we'll see soon enough how they're going to play this, and we are definitely going to update you when we have more info. Thank you so much for listening to this General Hospital's Comings and Goings update. I'll have more for you soon. This is Belinda from Soap Dirt.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.